Hi guys, welcome to Module 5 of our Managing Safety and Events course. Module 5 is all about understanding hazards. So by the end of this module, you'll be able to understand the different hazard categories, and you'll be able to identify common hazards at events. So there's a whole list of those. We've got a really good group activity to identify different commonly encountered hazards at events and have a look at the control measures. And you'll also be able to understand how to identify and apply the correct control measures to reduce those hazards to a level that is as low as reasonably practicable. So let's start off with understanding of the different hazard groups. 6 different categories of hazards: mechanical, physical, chemical, biological, environmental, and organisational. Before we get into the really specific hazard types that we encounter at events, we're just going to go through each of these hazard groups so that you understand what they are and what we mean when we talk about biological hazards or organisational hazards. So mechanical hazards involve a machine or a process. There's a few different ways that they can cause harm. Entanglement, which is where an item of clothing, a scarf, or your hair or something will become tangled up in a moving part of the machinery, either ripping that hair out the scalp or bringing one of your body parts into contact with the machine. Crushing is the application of pressure. That can be the application of pressure from inside a machine. It could also be a telehandler or a lorry backing up, hitting you and crushing you against a wall or something like that. So it doesn't have to be internal to the machine. Cutting and severing does what it says in the tin, really. Sharp edges, cutting, causing a cut in the skin or severing a limb potentially. Shearing, the easiest way to describe that is to think about a scissors action. So it's 2 sharp edges moving past each other, causing harm because you've got a part of your body in the way of those two edges moving past each other. Drawing in is what it sounds like. So that's been pulled in or drawn into a machine. So it might be if you're working on a conveyor belt and it starts up again, you've got a bit of you gets caught on that conveyor belt and you're pulled into a machining process. For example, impact is being struck by a piece of the machinery. It could also potentially be some flying debris thrown up by the machining process. Stabbing and puncturing involves a sharp edge or a spike, puncturing the skin with a stabbing action. Friction or abrasion is if you think about like a sanding disc, sandpaper, something fairly coarse rubbing against your skin over and over again, taking off those layers of the skin, abrading the skin, causing injury that way. And then high pressure fluid injection. If you think about hydraulics, think about maybe some of the hydraulic processes, some of the hydraulics in a telehandler. Give you an event specific example. High pressure fluid injected into the skin, causing all sorts of harm and injury that way. So that's mechanical hazards. Physical hazards, lots and lots of physical hazards on our event sites. We define a physical hazard as an unsafe condition that can cause injury, illness, and death. And that could be it could be fire, it could be electricity, it could be vibration from tools, poor housekeeping, slips, trips, and falls, uneven ground conditions on our event sites. There's loads and loads of physical hazards. We're going to get into some specific examples in a little bit. Chemical hazards. The intrinsic properties of some substances or chemicals can cause harm to humans property or the environment. There's lots and lots of naturally occurring chemicals that can cause harm. Arsenic is naturally occurring. Radon gas is a naturally occurring chemical that can cause harm. But that's commonly encountered when we're digging underground in certain parts of the country. Other chemicals manufactured for commercial or home use. So think about paint, varnish, bleaches, diesel fumes, lots and lots of different chemical hazards. You are going to have some potentially hazardous chemicals on your event site, even if it's just some of the cleaning products that are used. And that chemical hazards come under the COSH legislation, so the Control of Substances Hazardous to Health. Next up, we've got biological hazards, which are organic substances or microorganisms that pose a threat to the health of humans and other living organisms. The key word there is organic. So they have to be organic substances or microorganisms that to be classified as a biological hazard. Examples include pathogenic bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites. So if you're putting on an event on a farm's field, you need to be thinking about the hazard for salmonella and E. coli from livestock feces. That's a biological hazard, something that you need to consider pretty carefully. Environmental hazards, conditions at work have the potential to affect the environment and adversely affect people's health. So poor lighting is a condition that you might struggle with in your venue. It might be poor lighting. Dust is an environmental hazard. Unreasonable temperatures, extreme heat, extreme cold can adversely affect people's health. And then something that we deal with a lot at our event are high noise levels, whether from machinery during the build or the de-rig process, or high noise levels on stage in front of the PA. Think about your security team in the pits, in front of the stage. They are working at high noise levels, and we need to do something to manage that. So the sixth hazard category is organisational hazards. Organisational hazards associated with behaviours, workload, and time constraints. They're how the organisation is managed or how the organisation operates. Organisational hazards, if they're not managed, can lead to high levels of occupational stress, which we know has adverse effects on our health, whether that's physical or mental. So organisational hazards, things like a lack of control over our workload, unreasonable time constraints, or potentially bullying behaviour from our managers. Loads of different organisational hazards, things that we need to think about a lot in the event industry with our very dynamic environment that we work in, really short time frames, and often quite a lot of last minute changes, which can cause a lot of stress, as I'm sure some of you know. So common hazards at events. We're gonna have a look. We're gonna have a look at these hazards, and we're going to talk about how they can cause harm, and we're going to talk about what we can do to control them. So we're going to look at adverse weather, camping, crowd management, electricity, fire, food hygiene, lifting equipment, lifting operations, manual handling, medical provision, noise, site design and capacity, special effects, stress, temporary demountable structures, vehicles and plant, and working at height.